Let's talk about it.
Hello and welcome back to Thicc Radio, the podcast where we talk about gaming and everything in its orbit. I'm James.
And I'm Tim, so let's get it started. Today, James and I, flying solo again, we are actually going to be talking about censorship today.
Yeah, so this is a topic that I think comes up relatively frequently for the community, which kind of makes sense, you know. Theoretically, a lot of what we produce as gainers, it could be considered pornographic. So, depending on what we post and where, posts get flagged, posts get taken down, accounts get reported, even banned, blocked, deleted. So, you know, censorship is something that I think a lot of us experience. And, you know, to kind of kick things off, Tim, have you really experienced much in the way of censorship in the past?
Not so much in the past. Like, I'll be honest, when my Instagram profile only had like 200 followers, I could get away with pretty much anything, because I feel like when you're under a certain followership, Instagram's not paying attention to what you're doing, you know? And so I was getting away with some racy stuff, like full bare ass pictures and everything. And then as soon as the followership got bigger and more people started following me, I noticed that if I posted something a bit racy, Instagram police would step in and smack my hand and take it down. And I know this happens to other gainers because we see it all the time. They'll post on their stories, like, you know, they had this great picture of themselves. They were feeling their oats. They wanted to share it with everybody. And Instagram says, no, can't have it. It's too ugly, or it's too pornographic, or whatever. Like the tiniest hint of an acorn in your pants, and they are ready to just shop. You know, they are like, no to this. So I've dealt with that. I've dealt with being censored on TikTok because I posted something that TikTok thought was too racy. And again, it's not like I'm showing my genitals, but because I'm wearing boxer briefs or something that's more revealing, they determine this is inappropriate.
As gainers, we're across a multitude of different platforms these days. You know, I'd say most popularly after Grommr would be Instagram. From there, Twitter. After that point, maybe Tumblr, and then TikTok. And of course, you've got other platforms that we do operate on, like YouTube. There are various gainer Discords, Twitch servers, things like that. But each one has different rules about how you have to approach what you approach. They've all got algorithms about what gets, you know, automatically flagged and dropped. You've got moderators who make that kind of decision. Everywhere's kind of different. So it's sometimes hard to know how to best express yourself as a gainer on different platforms. I've had posts taken down in the past, and it's always a worry because you think to yourself, you know, what is it about this particular post? Especially after a period where you think you've kind of gotten into the rhythm of posting certain things, you know your angles, you know what's kind of going to get you flagged and not flagged, and then something gets taken and you go, am I kind of overestimating myself right here? Like what's going on? So I think it can also get you in your own head because you are still imposing self-auditing, self-imposed limits on what you do because this is what you think you have to do in order to operate in a different space, you know?
You know what really, the two things that really piss me off about the guidelines that are on most of these major social media apps is, okay, so things can be retroactively flagged too. That's the thing. Like someone, we know that there are people out there who troll these social platforms with no other intent than to just report and try to get rid of things because they're assholes. So someone could go back into my profile and see some of the earlier pictures, things that were taken 5 years ago, and flag it as inappropriate. And that counts as yet another flag towards your account, and you can get shut down that way. The other thing that really pisses me off is that, okay, so say this bodybuilder, Calvin Klein looking dude is wearing a Speedo and he's in a tropical location and he's glistening from the sweat and like his bulge is prominently on display and you can clearly see the outline of everything. That's fine. They're okay with that. Nobody getting flagged there. No one's account getting suspended there. But if I did that, whoa, no, 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 sir. They would immediately flag that shit and I could get banned.
Well, I think that can also be kind of understood in a way similarly to how, the law only really exists to affect the poor. Because as we see, even with simple legal things like, settlements in court, oh, you can settle something outside of court if you have enough money. Like, that's a privilege. It's a privilege to say, yes, I accidentally murdered your child when I mowed them down, but if you'll quietly take 10 million, we never have to talk about this ever again. Like, that's a problem because it's the rich being allowed to get away with shit. It's because for a group of people, you have the privilege to post whatever the hell you want and not get banned or blocked or picked up on. And for others, you're left to the whim of the tide. And that's because you exist in the minority. And in the case of social media, when we post our content, the minority we represent is fat. Because to the wider world, fat is wrong. And it's also known at this stage that a lot of algorithms operate on a percentage of skin shown policy. So if the algorithm looks over your image and determines, oh, they have more flesh showing than the recommended percentage, it gets flagged. But of course, as fat people, there is more flesh. That's the whole point. So even an innocuous photo will get flagged and taken down because there's more flesh.
Yeah, well, not only that, but say like if it's a very chubby man who has pretty nice set of man boobs, and he posts a picture of himself, the algorithm is going to immediately flag it because they think that this is a woman's breasts on display.
Email
and it's not, and it's not, and it's like that's part that just drives me nuts. It's like this, like if there's not someone who's sitting there and trying to like look at the picture and be like, oh, okay, this is the guy. I understand why you can't have bare breasts on social media. I get it. I think it's stupid, but I get it. But like, if you're not going to hire people to look at the content and determine, okay, this is all right, this isn't. I hate the algorithm shit because it's leaving it up to the whim of a fucking computer.
To challenge you on this, when you say you get why female presenting breasts are banned, tell me why.
Well, because parents don't parent their children. That's why. The reason why we can't have nice things is because people refuse to be parents. Because they'll hand their 5-year-old a cell phone and say, here, entertain yourself. And they don't put any kind of blocks on their phone. They don't restrict apps. They don't even pay attention. So their kids are going to start scrolling through and seeing all kinds of things that they shouldn't be able to see. In my day, there was dial-up internet, and there were security features, like they had Net Nanny and they had all these other programs that would specifically ban adult websites. Nowadays, people don't even bother. And this is the reason why there have to be all these imposed guidelines on everything, and why this can't be shown, that can't be shown, because of the children, because I can't be a parent.
I mean, I get that. I think my critique there maybe is that, like, I don't personally see in 2021 why we still have a gendered banning of breast.
I don't see why either. Like, I don't agree with it, but I understand why these companies are doing this, and it's because of lazy parents.
Yeah, but my critique there is I don't see why, because female breasts are treated sexually, but then so is male pectorals. I think the onus is not necessarily on children there, but on the male gaze. It's the idea that we treat men like, oh, men aren't in control of their faculties. When a man sees a pair of women's breasts, he becomes a beast, an uncontrollable animal who cannot control his urges. Therefore, if he goes out and sexually assaults a woman, it's not his fault because he was simply assaulted with her breasts. It's her fault. And
well, I probably should have been more clear about that, but you're right. Like, the reason why those laws exist is because lawmakers don't think that men can control themselves. Apparently all men just want to rape people.
And
and that's where these laws come from, because they think men are weak, men can't control their libidos, and if they're presented with nudity of the opposite gender, that they're just going to rape it. And it's stupid as fuck, but I mean, I live in Ohio. I live in a state where we have like maybe the only other state that has many restrictions on us in like nudity, sex, all that stuff is Utah. Like, we are one of the most conservative redneck states in the United States. And I hate that we have these ridiculous laws still on the books.
I mean, it's hard, and I think, when we even talk about the concept of censorship in an online space, because you can set Instagram and other profiles to be above 18 plus, but I think censorship still happens according to those profiles based on what they perceive. So, what we already know just from this chat is that there's not just issues relating to fat phobia, there are issues relating to sexism. And as a lot of sex workers will, confirm, a lot of this tends to not happen to heterosexual individuals performing certain acts, but to homosexual, trans, and queer individuals. It happens quite often, as well as people of color. So, once again, it is the collective of minorities being treated in a way that is not positive because it doesn't appeal to the theoretical mass. Which, if you want to boil that then further down, it's just capitalism. Capitalism says this isn't viable, therefore it's crap, therefore get rid of it.
Yeah.
No. Let me flog my 2-cent titties on the internet. Leave me alone. Just because I'm not looking to make a fucking whole dollar on them doesn't make them less valid. But hey ho, I think that's maybe getting down that's going down the rabbit hole a bit far for the moment. But I'm curious to know from your perspective, do you feel like censorship has increased or decreased in the community over the years?
I think it's increased because I can remember back when YouTube first launched and it wasn't owned by any other larger conglomerate. It was its own thing. And there were no restrictions. It was just a video sharing server. So you could put whatever you wanted on there. No one got flagged. No one got it taken down because it was like, well, we're not here to be a family friendly company. We're here to just be video sharing. So like when I referenced that in the golden age of gaming, that was when you saw some amazing gainer content being put up because people were free to do so. And then it got bought by Google. And then Google came in and was like, no, we have to be family friendly. We're going to make this about education and entertainment, and we're going to make it sanitized so that there's no possible way that anybody can see the wrong kind of thing on this. And, now YouTube is a juggernaut. And, I remember, I wasn't around when Instagram first launched, I don't think. I was alive. It's just I wasn't paying attention.
Right.
So I don't remember if there was a time before that had restrictions on it. I just feel like it keeps getting worse because like I said earlier, we know that there are people out there who have a specific intent to troll content and make nasty comments and report and try to get it taken down just because they don't like it or because they like being contrarian or because they just like being a shit starter.
Yeah.
So I feel like, it's getting harder and harder to put the kind of stuff that you want out there for your audience when you've got Big Brother over your shoulder the whole time.
No, I definitely agree with that. And I think I've never tried to consider my own content wholly pornographic, because I also know that that's not been a particular intention of mine, is to be so explicit. But it's certainly a conversation that has been had, I think, more so over recent years. And I just think it's curious. I think it's interesting when you peel it back and you look at what people are doing and what people are saying. I think it's worth acknowledging, it's probably not just for shits and giggles that people are saying such things. It's probably more to do with people's lived experiences and they're within. So I don't know, I think it must be happening. But then I also think, while maybe that does happen across other forums, what about on these gamer-specific forums? Like, you've got Grommr now, but previously it was Bigger City, it was... What else? We've got Beefy...
Beefy Frat, Gainer Web, Belly Builders.
All of these. So I'm curious to know, because you've been on a couple of those others yourself, do you feel like censorship and maybe the type of content that has been permitted has been affected over the years?
Well, once upon a time, those older websites, if they hadn't bought the online adult web space, you just couldn't be nude. Now you could show bare ass. Basically, you just couldn't show your genitals. That was the only thing that was off limit. You couldn't show your genitals.
Which makes sense.
Yeah. But beyond that, you could have bare ass. You could have very suggestive. You could have one hand covering your genitals. As long as that was not in frame, it was okay. And I think that when Grommr, I might not be remembering this right, but I feel like when Grommr started, it wasn't technically an adult space yet, so they cracked down on nudity right away. They were like, we can't show nudity at all, period. And then eventually it evolved into, okay, you can show nudity, but you have to keep it private. It can't wind up in the regular photo feed. So that used to be the only true restriction, was just don't show your cock.
I'm kind of curious, do you feel like censorship exists outside of the current like photo and video sharing forums?
I think outside of, you said outside of the community, right?
Yeah, so it's sort of like we know that on different platforms where you post videos and photos, censorship exists because
Yeah.
visual content. But do you feel like censorship exists for us in other areas?
I mean, the fashion industry, the beauty industry, the fitness industry. I mean, those three industries alone would prefer that we don't exist at all. That fat people didn't exist, because I mean things are evolving in the fashion and beauty world. I will give it that. It's been a long time coming, but things are changing. But for the longest time, from like the '60s until now, if you were a woman, you had to be wasp waif thin. The heroin chic thing was very popular. So if you look like you just got dragged out of the gutter, that was even better. Men had to be studs. They had to be ripped, chiseled, look like they were cut from marble. Um, Major fashion houses did not design clothes that went above like a medium for men, and they wouldn't go above like a size 8 for women. The beauty industry is always about, weight loss and all these fad diets and all these body treatments that will get you looking thin and gorgeous. And of course, the fitness industry will never be on our side. They will always wish that we didn't exist.
I mean, I definitely agree. I think, fat people aren't shown, I guess you could say, as opposed to being censored. We're not shown or displayed as being a part of it, certainly in fashion. For the most part, we're unseen. Even just as something as simple as fast fashion retailing. I've said this on a previous podcast. I, in recent years, grew into XLs, which was fantastic, considering I used to be in the multiple X smalls. It was fantastic to see the extras again from the other side of it. And I was in an extra large. I thought, fantastic. I'm so excited to go and have a look at some shirts. And I was amazed because in larges, things were there. And then suddenly I was only in extra large and I went, oh, my range has decreased significantly. And I realized when I was looking at it, because I thought I might buy the occasional 2X to grow into, I couldn't find a single one. And that really gave me pause to go, oh my God, like you really come against it hard when all you want to do is just buy a simple fucking block color shirt and nothing's available to you. So you can see in many ways that we are told by society that we are not represented. And by that extension, we are therefore not wanted in a certain space. Therefore, they do not provide for us, which is hard. So that's a bit shitty.
As far as like actual true censorship, as in like, we cannot show this, period. I don't know. I mean, because you can get away with being chubby if you're an actor. Like the entertainment industry is a place where you can get away with it. However, if you are overweight, very large, chubby, however your body shape is, you are often relegated to the sexless best friend or the funny person, the token. You're never really the leading man or leading lady. So maybe that has its biases too.
And it's also something to be said, things like at the beach. Again, it's not quite censorship, but there is an indirect shame, or sometimes even overt, direct, that is applied to fat people. Men, don't take your shirt off and let all that blubber out for everyone to see. Make sure you put a swim shirt on, for God's sakes. Tuck it away. Women in a two-piece, disgusting, disgraceful with that midsection showing. It should only be a one-piece with a compression vest underneath to cinch in and give her a waist, because without a waist, however will we know that she's in fact a woman? It's interesting that
But
These,
you know what I love? Like that. So, like what you're describing is how I see most of like America's point of view towards beach bodies. But what something that I really appreciate and love about some European countries is that it doesn't matter how overweight the men are; they will always be wearing a speedo because that's just what's popular. Like
oh yeah,
that is the standard swim attire for some areas in Europe, and so you get these soft, bloated, middle-aged men looking fabulous in their speedos, and I wish that that was something America had adopted, but it's not.
I'm curious for your perspective on this. Where do you think the line is between this theoretical sweet spot of monitoring content from where, we should look over things and give it the once over, um, versus that kind of steep slope point of no return when we're just flagging shit left, right, and center when algorithms call the shots on everything? What do you think that middle ground looks like?
I'm not entirely sure because I don't know. I think we're far past the middle ground at this point. I think we're at the other end of the spectrum that you mentioned, where it's algorithms and bots and trolls who are holding people's content hostage.
Mm.
Um, and I don't know why. I don't know why it happens. Honestly, I don't know why people care. I don't know why. What compels a person to go out of their way to try and get rid of something? Like I've mentioned it before, but do you remember there was a YouTube user from Russia with love who went on a
Yes.
crusade to report all gainer content and try to get it removed? And we don't know anything about who this person was. We don't know if they were an adult. We don't know if they were a child. We don't know if they were American. We don't know where in the world they were. But they made it a mission to try and single-handedly take down the gainer community. And because people like that exist, and because the policies of these social media apps actually back up their bad behavior, I don't know if there's a middle ground.
Mm. I suppose the thing I find interesting is when you think of the idea of like, let there be no censorship, no monitoring whatsoever. I get the red flags of going, well, hold on now, kiddie porn's a real thing, and we should
Yes.
definitely be, conscious of that, because this is another thing that comes up in the online spheres far too frequently, and you and I think, have been on the receiving end of this as individuals with public profiles. On your notifications, you can see if someone follows you. And generally speaking, if I see a name that's something like, Teen Boy 15, let's say,
Mm,
I know that this person is 15 and I need them off. So I will make them unfollow me because you can remove followers.
yes. Yeah.
And that's all I'll do because I'm not looking to, ban this person from, I suppose, content of their own age group. I'm not looking to report them. I think if
Mhm.
15-year-olds are doing 15-year-old things as gainers online, then they should be interacting and gaining with that. That makes sense to me. But, the ones that then decide to message and say, hi, just so you know, I'm 13. I hope that's not a problem. Yes, it's a problem.
Yeah, it's a problem.
This is very much a problem, and I have to block you now because you just following me, I'm only going to make you unfollow me because you
Mhm.
haven't done anything malicious at that point.
Yeah.
You don't even know that I'm that clued in to realize. But the fact that you've come to me to speak with me to ask for my consent means that you're looking for me to take on responsibility for you doing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Which means if you send me nude images, that makes me liable. And I'm sorry, random 13-year-old, I am not going to fucking prison and being labeled a pedo because you've got your own 13-year-old horny brain. You need to take that to areas of the internet that do exist for you. So please, off your pop and do that. And to any listeners who might be underage, maybe you don't understand this now, but when you are of age, you will come to appreciate that when you see an underage person interacting with you, the fear of Jesus fucking runs through you. Because all in an instant, you have this realization that if this goes any further or in a different direction, this could end up very, very bad for me. And all because someone who just thought that it was fine to interact and engage in a certain type of way did what they did. But that's where we have to have something. We have to have some form of censorship, some form of gatekeeping, some form of something, whatever you want to call it, however you want to phrase it. There needs to be something that does protect of age and ability to consent people in our community, because I ain't going to prison. I
agree.
ain't looking to do shit with 13-year-old. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I don't want this.
And I don't know if it's possible to do this, and I'm not sure the ramifications if they could develop something like this, but some sort of, fail-safe that would keep people under the age of 18 away from certain online spaces. Now, programs exist, but your parents have to be the one to purchase it and enter in all the information. Like, I'm not saying that I want there to be some form of AI cyber police, because that's pretty much what's going on anyway. But if there was just a way to separate them into two different worlds, like here's the online adult space, here's a space online for all minors, and there's no way that they can cross over, because then I think maybe we could be free to post the kind of content we want. However, I'm going to say it again, and I've already said it several times now, there are still people who make it a point to just stir shit up and try to be shit starters and try to be difficult. And, because trolls are of all age groups and all races and all body types. And like, I don't know what we can do about that.
Now, there's something I actually wanted to flag with you that I think this is actually really good for anyone who has an Instagram. So I was making a new connection recently through the community, and he provided me the username for his civilian profile that I went to go follow, but I couldn't find it. And I was curious and said, "Oh, have you spelled it wrong?" He said, "Oh, no. I've set my profile so that anyone under the age of 18 cannot find this. It will say user not found."
Oh, well, where is that feature?
Now, I had a look because on my profile, I didn't have my age written down, which doesn't matter because you're setting it to what other people set their age to. But this is part of it. If someone removes their date of birth, it doesn't count. But hey ho, it's at least a something, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if someone is listed under the age of 18 or doesn't have an age present, they can't find it. As far as I'm aware, this is only available on a professional account, which, around users, you can switch to a professional account for.
Yeah.
So that's actually what I did. I switched over my main stannnum Instagram to being a professional account, and there it was. If you search minimum age in the settings, it pops up, and you can set a minimum age, and you do that, and boom. No one under the age of 18 that has their birth date listed, or anyone who does not have a birth date listed, can find your Instagram.
I'm going to have to do that.
Like I say, if someone lies about their age, there's not much you can do about that. But at least it's something.
Yeah.
So, hey ho, we'll see what happens with other people. But to listeners who have an Instagram, that's something you can do. And if there are other tips and tricks on what you can do for YouTubes, for Twitters, for different bits and pieces, please write into us and let us know, because anything we can do to protect the community in that regard is only going to be helpful. So thank you everyone in advance for all your help on that one. We talked a little bit about Grommr and how Grommr's got its own privacy filters that it tries to utilize based on, as you say, back in the day, when it first came about, it wasn't explicitly an adult forum. They've had to add rules, and obviously over the years, shit gets tweaked back and forth, blah-de-blah, to the point now where there's an opportunity for private photos and stuff that can get flagged by people if it's deemed inappropriate. But some people critique it. Some people critique the status of these filters and give examples of photos that are posted and are seen as appropriate on Instagram, but get flagged on Grommr as gainer content. And that I find fascinating, because you would think it would be the other way around. It would be...
Yeah, it's been the other way around for me.
But plenty of people have posted content where they've said, I posted this on my Instagram, no issue. I posted this on Grommr, went straight to private. And a friend of ours posted an example recently of a photo that had been moved to private, and they hadn't been told that it had been moved to private. And it's a photo of them wrapped up from head to toe in a coat, a beanie, and a scarf with just their eyes showing because they just come out of a winter storm.
It's very odd. I don't know why would that be flagged as again, is okay, so is this, do we know if this is a team of people running Grokio who are screening these photos, or is this another AI situation?
Well, who knows? But I think at that point, it's less to do with who's behind it, because whether it's an AI or a person, who the fuck makes that kind of a call to put that on private? So it's worth critiquing because it's then
Well,
saying,
that's why I was asking, because like I feel like a computer is only as good as its programming.
but then
So
what is the quality of the programming that is being utilized about the photos on Grommr? Have they bought something bargain basement that clearly doesn't fucking work? That's a critique. It's a
yeah,
critique because as much as we can critique Grommr as there are these problems X, Y, Z, it is still seen to many as the main gainer website. And in many ways it still is. It is a website for us. And
yeah.
so if on our main platform we're being censored on how to express ourselves, worse so than other places, that's not really going to leave a positive idea of the platform in people's minds. They will move elsewhere. Because how else are you there to build community and talk to people if not to talk and post and show yourself? So you've now got apparently better censorship filters on Instagram and everywhere else, and a better messaging service.
Oh
Because,
yeah,
oh my
much better messaging
God,
service.
all my messages don't just.
So like I tell people all the time, like if you message me on Grommr, sometimes I get it, sometimes I don't. So then honestly, like it can be months before a notification came up that I missed somehow. And even opening the app, I won't necessarily see the little red notification that says you've got something waiting. But that app has a lot of bug problems. So I tell people, if you message me on Grommr, please don't get annoyed if I either never get back to you or it takes a long time. I, it's just not the place to talk to me.
Oh, 100%. I had this example just the other day with someone who I was having a perfectly lovely conversation. I sent them a message, didn't hear back from them, didn't think anything of it. And then it only happened that I got a message from someone else, was looking through my messages, and I saw what looked like a red message from me. Like, when you send a message and it shows as red, but it wasn't what I wrote them. It was a response they'd sent me. So it's as if someone's gone into my message, opened it, read it, and then closed it down. But I know for a dang fact that I never got it.
Mm,
So shit's fucking weird,
yeah,
honestly. Yeah. I feel like,
that whole group of apps really needs a major overhaul in its programming.
yeah, just a touch. Just a touch. We did have a listener question come through. What is the most prominent example of censorship that you've experienced?
I mean, I guess just getting slapped by either the Instagram or TikTok police and being told that it wasn't appropriate, and actually having put like effort. Like, yeah, there are times when I take a picture of myself and it's kind of just lazy and I'm sitting around and I just post it to Instagram because I'm like, I want them to know I'm still alive. But I do put some effort into the way that I look when I do these damn photos. Like I'm trying to think of lighting, I'm trying to think of outfit. I have a small home and it's kind of ugly, so I don't have the best like backdrops for my pictures, but
Right.
I'm still thinking of how it looks, and then to have it taken down, it's like, I put in that effort and no one's going to see it because the stupid app won't let me post it.
It can be very frustrating. I feel like the most active example I have of a censorship instance was one of my photos that was taken down. I must have had about 3 different review back and forths with Instagram over this, to the point where, it ended up staying down. But I was proud of myself for fighting for it because I didn't think it was an inappropriate photo. It was a shirtless selfie, of course. I wasn't even in a jockstrap. I wasn't even in underwear. I was in shorts, for fuck's sake. But clearly they decided that my titties was inappropriate for existence. So, but it's interesting to reflect on censorship experiences and how, for example, with Instagram, it's very easy to combat that. Whereas I don't actually know how I would complain to Grommr about photos being censored. I think I would try to. I think I could message a profile and say, hey, this happened. But I don't think I'd be confident that anyone would get back to me in any kind of a speedy manner. I don't think I'd be confident that it would be
Well, we
resolved.
know people who have complained to Grommr about other things
Uh,
and
um,
never got responses. So, if they're not going to respond to something more serious like racism,
mm,
odds are they're not going to respond to you about whether or not you think your photos should be private or public.
well, this is a very, very good point. And it's frustrating because I think, as we've said before, we don't mention these things about Grommr with the intent of saying, "Oh, let's go into this to slag them off. Let's go into this
Yeah,
for the sake of complaining." It's just frustrating that there are complaints, and as anyone who's been on the site in the last 10 years will tell you, they don't get listened to. Nothing
no.
changes, nothing improves. So, uh, community call out, anyone who wants to build a brand new website, call it something different, and maybe put a bit more money and effort behind it, please let us know. We'll have you on to talk about it.
Well, and maybe someday we'll launch our own. I mean, it's a very distant goal, but I mean, perhaps someday. And then I honestly think that if that was a possibility, I would hire a team of people,
Mm.
actual humans, to sit, and if content needs to be reviewed, then it's being reviewed by human eyes with a set of the guidelines in front of them.
Wouldn't it be
You know,
amazing if you had, let's say we owned a Gainer website, let's call it Gainer.com, but drop the E because that's the fancy thing that people do these days. They drop
all right. A
Gainer,
lot of misspelled words on here.
Gainer.com. We own Gainer.com. And we've got a team of, let's say, 20 people.
Mhm.
20 people to go through and manage our tech, manage the maintenance of shit, and do all that kind of stuff. Wouldn't it be amazing if every single person we had to do that was a community member?
Exactly.
Wouldn't it be
That's
incredible if every artist who designed our color scheme and bought the licensing for our official font, we had an illustrator to design all of that for us, if we had a webmaster who knew what they were doing with all of that, if we had social media experts, if we even was able to hire someone on our legal team.
I was just gonna, it's so funny that you're saying all this because I was thinking the other day on a drive into work, I was like, what if we owned a production company? And I was like, okay. Then I started thinking in my head, what would we have to do? Well, we'd have to obtain a business license. We'd have to have everything, all of our ducks in a row legally. Like we'd have to have a lawyer on retainer. I was thinking all this stuff, and I'm like, these are the things that have to be in place if you want it to be successful. Because as far as I know, Grommr is a grassroots thing that became what it is now.
Right.
But I feel like you can see where the holes were when they were developing this stuff. Like there's some very clear slots that should have been filled that were not.
And I don't know. I come back to this point. I feel like at this point in the community history, we know people who exist in all of these camps, in all of these industries. Who, if we had the opportunity as a grassroots business to say, "Listen, we want to make this happen. We want to employ you to work full time as what you do as a job, but for gaining." Would that not be the most appealing thing? Like, you as a nurse, I mean, sure, you probably don't want to have to deal with hoisting 600-pound chubs all day long, but let's say
I do that already.
you do that already. But, let's say we hosted, the Grommr and started hosting our own major scale events, and there's 1,000+ people, and you've always got to have the medics tent. And what would you say if that was your job? All day, every day. Sure, you don't want to have to go in and have to hoist people and revive them and stop them from dying and XYZ. But when the medic tent's not busy, because everyone's too busy being a chub and eating big and having fun, you just get to kick back with a fag outside and look at all the fat boys waddle past.
Yeah.
And that one cute one that you got your eye on, poor big boy, he fell down getting out of the pool and he's got a little scrape on his knee. And you're like, oh, baby, no, come on in. Let mama nurse patch you up. Like, wouldn't that be so much more fun
Yeah, absolutely.
than just having to deal with people's shit? So, I don't know. On this weird, maybe not so weird, tangent from censorship, like what's kind of then the opposite of that censorship? It's maybe
The free exchange of creative content and ideas with no one telling you you can't do this or that.
And it's interesting, this thought of, things that need to be disclaimed, things that need to be put out there. Recently I put together a chat group for some individuals, and there was this back and forth about, what needs to go into the message of this group, and someone was saying we need to be very explicit in saying that this is a safe space and we will not tolerate this, and da 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 da. And there was a lot of back and forth on, is that appropriate? Not because we don't want to have to put that vibe out there, but because we don't feel like we should have to say that. We don't feel like we should have to say to someone, look, don't be a cunt in this social group. But rules exist for a reason. Shit exists for a reason. And it's hard when you are talking about a collective of adults who just want to do what they want to do, and everyone's got different limitations, everyone's got different comfort levels, everyone's got different motivations. Like, how do you manage all of that? So hopefully, as we move forward into this new decade, in an increasingly COVID-free world, we say with fingers crossed, touching wood. I also have my lucky rabbit's foot, my four-leaf clover, my horseshoe, and my pot of... I have all of them on my side, God damn it. My genie's lamp, I have everything.
When you said hand on wood, I was like, what, you want me to grab my cock?
But I think it's interesting, this thought that, maybe the opposite of censorship, like you say, is free expression. And that's that question of, like, what if you dared to create a company where everyone you employed was a gainer and encourager, a feeder and admirer, a chub and a chaser? What if you were able to actually make this your life? How incredible would that be?
And we have the drive and the desire. We just are lacking the capital. So once we have capital, we're going to make it happen.
Girl, listen,
unfortunately, you can't start a business with no money. If you could, everyone would do it. But
listen, anyone out there with money, please, can I have some just to start a little business, please? Because I would very much like that.
I mean, we can always entertain the idea of a few years from now, if we reach the kind of impact and popularity that we're hoping to reach. Hell, we'll just start a GoFundMe for a production company. We'll say, do you guys want products that are aimed specifically at your community, starring people from your community, produced by people from your community, written by people from your community? That we can make that happen. We're not going to be a Film 911. We're not going to be a tailor-made Clips. We're not going to be a Clips for Sale. We're going to be a truly dedicated, gainer-related company. I mean, maybe people would be willing to donate to that.
Well, I mean, even student films where there's some form of budget, you will often see those on like an Indiegogo or a GoFundMe. And often what they will do is they will, as part of the package, they will show you things like they will have on their iPhones filmed, simple scenes with some basic costumes. They'll show you the art design, they'll show you the set design of the type of things that they're trying to go for. They'll explain to you exactly the costings and how it all breaks down and why they're aiming for the $1,000 for this amount of money. So I don't see that as unfeasible in the slightest. You get industry professionals who know what they're doing, and suddenly this becomes a new project that you can work on. So I don't see any of that as implausible or impossible. So I want to ask you, as we begin to wrap things up, how do you think we as individuals best strike a balance in how we present ourselves to provide authenticity while also adhering to these abstract guidelines?
I guess I figured, I can't speak for anybody else, but I think my sweet spot to exist here is, so the kinds of photos that have gotten flagged and the kind of videos that have gotten flagged, I now know it's because I was not wearing pants, or it was because I was wearing a jock or something like that. Like, Instagram doesn't seem to have a problem with my chest or my stomach. So as long as I am wearing full coverage on the lower half of my body, I seem to be okay. But it seems to be different for everybody. So I guess you're going to have to look at what has caused you a problem and try to tweak whatever you come out with next to not have that same thing in there. Like, if it's your chest, okay, you just lift up your shirt and have your chest covered, but your belly's exposed. Or, if you had a picture flagged because you're showing your bare ass, don't show your bare ass. If you get flagged for bouncing your belly, and it's clearly obvious that your penis is bouncing along with it. It's just aim the camera up a little bit higher so that people can't see your penis bouncing. It's stuff like that, I guess.
I don't disagree with that. I think when it comes to online spaces, you do tend to learn very quickly, like, what's appropriate and what's not, and maybe the question on whether something is or isn't appropriate. As new forums come into place, be proactive in vocalizing your thoughts and feelings on that and help shape the community that you want to be a part of. But as you say, learn from the things that get taken down and listen to the feedback and just try and play ball with it. None of us want to be censored. None of us want to have our shit taken down, because obviously that's not why we posted it. But just be conscious. We are at the whim of the leaders and elders of different social media networks, and for so long as we don't have control, we ourselves must play ball. So that's an unfortunate reality.
I do have one tip. Whatever doesn't fly on any other social media, Twitter will let you get away with anything. So what doesn't fly on Grommr or Instagram or TikTok, put it on Twitter, because nothing gets censored on Twitter. I've seen straight up porn on Twitter, and they've even said that. Twitter said, we don't censor, so put whatever the hell you want. We don't care.
Well, there you go then. Twitter. Maybe Twitter is the future home. I still don't know how to use Twitter. I'm still learning how to use it. It doesn't feel...
It's not user-friendly. It's not user-friendly.
But over time, it'll probably become easier. But Tim, baby, thank you for your time today. It's always a pleasure. Oh my God. Well, I suppose that's it for another episode here on Thicc Radio. Please remember to like and subscribe, rate us 5 stars, and leave a good review. If you like this episode, the podcast, or just us in general, share it with your friends and encourage them to tune in. As always, you can find me on Grommr, Instagram, and TikTok at stannnum, and Twitter and YouTube at stannnumg.
And you can find me on Grommr as Orpheus. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok at thiccmouse. And of course, you can find more of what we talked about today on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Patreon at Thicc Radio. So until next time, bye, Fats.
Bye, Fats.
Let's talk about it.
Thicc Radio is a Patreon and Enter app podcast produced by Stannnum and Thicc Mouse.
Mixed and mastered by stannnum.
Our artwork is provided by Lokitsu.
Our theme song is provided by Spotify.